the devastation and that suicide bombing in Manchester that happened on Monday at the Ariana Grande concert. 22 still confirmed dead, 119 now injured. Yesterday, when we first reported it in the morning blend, it was 59 injured. So that number has increased. The victims, part of the 22 dead, more of them are being ID'd this morning. We know that 8-year-old girl Safi, the 18-year-old girl, there was another gentleman, and then this morning you had reported on the mother who had a daughter who was missing, Olivia Campbell, and confirmed that she died on social.
Olivia Campbell's mom put up a Facebook post just offering, you know, some sort of a tribute to her own daughter on Facebook, if you can imagine. And then also we were learning about another man, a 29-year-old who was also being searched for on social media. A lot of photos were going up. His brother put up a photo to try to say, hey, if you've seen my brother, please let me know. Maybe he was at a hotel or a hospital and just unaccounted for. Unfortunately, the grim reality is we're seeing those stories turn out to be the deaths involved in this. Just sad.
So sad. The other sad part is too, some people may forget, you know, this was an Ariana Grande concert. Ariana Grande, yes, she survived. No, she was not injured. But mentally, this is taking a toll on her. And we're seeing it from what her people are saying. We are just learning that Taylor Swift actually chartered the plane from North Carolina, at least what Page 6 out of New York is reporting, chartered that plane to get her and bring her home to Florida. And we know that she has more performances on the calendar in London at the O2 Arena. It has not yet been confirmed or denied as to whether she is performing or not. And those performances are scheduled for tomorrow and for Friday. So you would think at this point, being that we're Wednesday here in the U.S., she would either be on her way if she was going to continue on with the tour, but we don't know. We don't know yet. I think when we came to you yesterday, we had heard that it was going to be canceled indefinitely, but now we don't even know if the ones this week are going to be canceled.
And the O2 did put out a Twitter post, and so I think we have that we can show you, and they did actually say, you know, this is obviously something that people are frustrated with because they can't make a decision quite yet, and this is supposed to happen very soon, but they just say that they're in contact with the tour promoters regarding a final decision. As of yet, it hasn't officially been postponed or canceled, but they are going to try to give new details when they get them.
What do you think the holdup is? Wouldn't you automatically, if you were Ariana Grande or her people or her mom who was there with her inside of that arena, wouldn't you suggest that you don't want your kid, your daughter? At the end of the day, Ariana Grande is someone's daughter, right? And she's still a kid, essentially, like, you know, in her mother's eyes at least. Stay off that stage?
Well, you know, again, when it comes to business and money, sometimes it's not as simple as the artist saying, you know what, I'm traumatized, I can't get out on that stage and perform. Sometimes it's the people behind the scenes that say, hey, we sold X amount of tickets. If we don't have the concert, X people aren't getting paid, X promoters are going to lose money, we're going to lose X amount of dollars, and this is what's
not good for the brand.
So to me, when I'm hearing this, I'm not automatically even assuming that it's on Ariana saying, maybe I should go out there and perform, because just seeing pictures of her, she looked very distraught. And to the point where I wouldn't want to see her on stage and performing. So I automatically took it too. Maybe it's the business side.
And I think too, you have two sides of that. You have the side of people saying it's too soon. Protect Ariana, protect the rest of the kids, because the terror threat is at a critical level in Europe right now, and at least in England, specifically around the Manchester area. So for them to have another concert, is that negligent in a way? You know, you have to wonder from the authority standpoint, if they allow this to go on, God forbid something happen, whose fault is it? But then there's the other side where you have all these fans saying, don't let the terrorists believe that they've won, keep it going, let's come together, we'll show up, we'll be here, we're going to prove that we're going to fight with just the power of our communities turning out and not being scared. And so, but what side are you on, you know? Because as somebody who actually has a concert coming up next month, I'm a little bit hesitant now. I'm probably not going to cancel my trip, but it makes me think, like, do I want to be in that kind of situation, or should I just say we can't live our life in fear?
And is it unfair for Ariana to be put in that position to say, in the mindset of the fan, hey, we really want to see you perform, we'll come out, let's not show people that we're scared, let's stand up to threat. why should that be on her? And, you know, as a person,
that's a lot.
That's a lot to take, because let's say something else did happen, God forbid.
She should have known. Look what happened a couple days before.
And then it's going to be on her. She's going to feel like it's going to be on her even more. So I don't. To me, it's just unfair to put that on anybody, and it's just this just sucks.
And you can't imagine what she must be going through. I mean, I'm sure, I understand a lot of those families lost family members and friends, lost friends, but Ariana probably feels a lot of guilt and a lot of responsibility for that. So she's probably traumatized. I would imagine post-traumatic stress is something that you could likely have as a result of something like this. I mean,
for sure. We don't know exactly
and mentally
what she heard, what she saw, the screams she heard. Like, and we're not saying that Ariana's the only one affected here. Not at all. Look at the lives that were lost, which is why I'm sure Ariana feels a sense of guilt, survivor's guilt, right? Where it's that everyone was coming here, all eyes were on me, and for my music, and look what happened. We have Cheryl Fong, who says, just terribly sad. I took my daughters to the AG, Ariana Grande, concert when she was in SAC. Could not imagine what these Manchester folks are going through right now. And for people like Cheryl, who says she took her daughters, you know, she's a mother. She could have been one, you know, in that stand, or in those stands if she was in Manchester. We were talking about the capacity and the difference in venues. Yesterday, I had done some research, and Golden One Center for concerts holds 19,000 guests, where the arena in Manchester was held up to 21,000. So
pretty
not
close.
a huge difference, but imagine all of those people trying to escape these exit doors, recording video as these booms were going off. Just what that was like, you can kind of really just sense the destruction.
We're showing you too some tweets and some videos that have been put out in tribute to the victims, and also people saying that they stand with Ariana. The hashtag Not Your Fault Ari, Not Your Fault Ariana is now going around because she is likely the cause of a lot of people's grief. She's the person who was performing at the time, and so there are a lot of fans coming out saying this wasn't your fault, you can't blame yourself, and now that Twitter hashtag is going around, and so I would encourage you to take a look at some of the things that have been posted. But clearly this impacted so much more. Even if you're not an Ariana Grande fan, we can all relate to terrorism. We can relate to the fact that people are out trying to enjoy a celebratory concert and something like this happens. The fact that these were kids, I mean, there's just so many impacts on so many levels.
And Delbert's chiming in saying, I really don't think she cares. I'm not sure that's fair, you know, to say that, at least in my opinion, to say I don't think she cares. You know, she is a human being, and she does have a team of people, and her manager, Scooter, who is well-renowned in the industry, the manager of Justin Bieber, and the list goes on and on. But, you know, to say that she doesn't care, I mean, she, according to reports, you know, couldn't lift her head, was just devastated, couldn't open her eyes after this event, went back home, met her boyfriend, Mac Miller, on the tarmac there, and they just embraced, because, you know, her life could have been lost easily, easily. We have people chiming in saying,
Tammy feels sorry for the families who lost their loved ones. Absolutely.
Nicole Michelle Coker saying she's still a human and people died at her show. She cares. Stop it. So I know you guys are on opposing sides here.
And there's no way that, there's no way to even, we shouldn't even try to assume whether she cares or not, because that's not even the point. You know what I mean? The point, people lost their lives, and now you have young children who, because, you know, we have to look at the innocence of children, right? I want to go see Ariana Grande. I'm 8 years old. Hey, it's going to be a great time.
You don't think about
you're not thinking about this, but now possibly your kid is, and so the difficult conversations that you have to have as a parent. You're saying, you know what, maybe if she does perform at O2, you know what, maybe we shouldn't go. And then the kid is like, but why not? Then you have to kind of massage that and find a way to address it. So again, not saying her entire fan base were kids and that the only people that were affected were children, but she does have a very big child demo that follows her. So now this is going to change the dynamic in their lives as well. So I would assume that anybody would care about that. Like little kids.
And it sucks that it took, and not that this hasn't resonated with people in the past after such horrific terrorist attacks, but it took something like this for some young kids to have to understand what terrorism really is, and what it looks like, and what it sounds like, and what it feels like, you know, because now, like Cornelia is saying, these kids are gonna, when they think concert, I think automatically a kid may go, oh, but then this could happen. You know, we don't know how that'll affect the business side either of concert going.
And I remember after the big box truck ran into a crowd of people in Paris, was it?
Yeah.
A couple years ago. Yeah. We had a conversation with a psychologist right here on the show, and we talked about how you talk to your kids about something like this.
Right. Or if you do it all.
If you do it all, what the conversation is like. I encourage you parents to weigh in things that you wouldn't say, because the psychologist at the time was saying, you know, you can't ignore your kids' questions and concerns. You don't necessarily need to be the person who brings up all of the really horrific graphic details, but if you want to at least put the conversation out in the universe for them to know that you care, that you are concerned for them. That was the psychologist's suggestion, is that you show that you are worried for them because you're worried too. It's not something just they could be concerned about, yourself, other people. So if you're having these conversations with your kids though, what do those look like? What do they sound like? I'm really curious to see, and maybe we can start a thread for parents to kind of have a support system within this specific Extra Shot episode where you can kind of have these conversations with each other, see what each other is saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also to point out too, kids sometimes, yes, you want to have a great relationship with your children, but sometimes they talk about stuff with their friends that they don't talk about with you.
Yes.
So in situations like this, do you want to get ahead of it where they're hearing about something bad like this happening from their friends instead of you?
Right.
Right.
Because once they hear it, then that's their first impression, and first impression is a lasting impression.
And you don't know if,
you know,
good
that's
point.
another point.
Great point.
and you don't know if they're hearing, to your point, you don't know if they're hearing the right facts, right? Or if this is being, you know, the numbers are being heightened for the sake of dramatics, right? And I say this because yesterday I was at the nail shop, I was getting a nail fixed, and of course it's like being around a water cooler, right? People are talking about the current events of that day, and I overheard a group of girls talking about the suicide bomber, saying that even though they were saying suicide bomber, you know, all this new information's coming in, they were like, yeah, the guy is still out on the loose and he's on the run. And that's when I chimed in and I just said, yeah, just to be clear, and they didn't recognize me. I don't think they didn't know that I was, you know, worked in news. But I said, well, suicide bomber, insinuating that he is dead, so that the potential. I mean, they've done, you know, use technology to identify his face and recognize his face, but he is dead. There is another person who police over in Manchester, South Manchester, have captured, and it is said to be a relative, if not the brother, of that suspected suicide bomber, killer. So, you know, just those facts, all this new information is coming in, and people are, it's like the game of telephone. You know, and these kids could be hearing, oh, 119 people injured. In their heads, it's 119 people dead. You know, how easy is that to then carry on, and that turns into a much bigger number than 22 people dead. So it's just important for parents, I think, I'm not a parent yet, but it's important for parents to chime in with the right information.
And Jessica too, who is a mother, says always have to have an open conversation and tactful dialogue with your children. And I completely agree. Jessica, hi, thanks for being with us. I think that it's, you know, I'm not yet a parent, but I can imagine that these conversations aren't easy. And I think that the more open you can be within some sort of a boundary, probably that might be the best if they're going to hear about it anyway at school or from friends.
Absolutely. And Dina asked for parents to chime in. So Kimberly Morgan did chime in right now. I tell my kids that there are people who live in our world that doesn't always agree with our views, and sadly people turn to violence to show their views, and I use that to let them know we can't live in fear every day. We have that same convo occasionally. So thank you for sharing, Kimberly, what it is you do with your child.
Joel Broussard, also as a parent, I'd put the conversation out there of what could happen at any time of event. However, what we focus on is different. And it says, make sure that my kids are aware, but aren't focusing on the things that they fear.
So we're seeing that common thread.
Instilling fear.
Don't instill fear. You got to still live your life, but of course be very aware of your surroundings. I mean, every day, no matter where I'm at, we live in a capital city. You know, there's a lot that happens in any capital city, in any city, any small city. But we're in the state of California, just always on alert. And it's different than the life that I think my parents had to lead. But they had things that they had to worry about that we don't now. So we have access to so much information. It's going back to the whole fake news thing. How do you gather the right information? What do you look for when you go to websites, when you see pictures, how to do the reverse?
Yeah, and there is a way that you can do a reverse Google search on an image, images.google.com, and you can actually copy and paste and save an image that you see if it's kind of going around on Twitter and you're not sure if it's a legit photo, if it's been copy and pasted from another site. You can put it in that reverse Google search and find out the origin of it. So it's just about educating ourselves and putting ourselves in a position, if we're going to have a conversation with someone else, that we're not spreading false information.
Yeah, no, good point.
Speaking of information.